applaud our teachers and lecturers who struggle to gather knowledge and impart this knowledge on us. For us in Al-Usrah, the search for knowledge continues. And that is why after making last Sunday a free one, we said we should resume our learning, our knowledge seeking today. And so, in the light of that, we are having Ustadh Abu Sofiya, Abdulmojeed, Ogunsakin, to take us today on Islamic trade, banking and finance as gems of ethical wealth for humanity. Gems of ethical wealth for humanity. When we were returning from journeying, my grandson was asking, say, Grandpa, what is shukuk? Say, what is this? What is the meaning of shukuk that they wrote on the side of the road? I said, it is an Islamic financing. The young boy was asking me, what is the meaning of sukuk? So we passed through roads that have benefited from Islamic financing. And a lot of roads like that in the country has benefited from sukuk. So Malam is going to tell us more about these beautiful gems. Because without trading, finance and banking, we will not be able to have wealth that is required to serve Allah. So, we welcome our brother. We thank him indeed for accepting this challenge. And so we expect all of us to please listen attentively to him. May Allah guide him through the lecture and let it be a source of benefit to all of us. Please let us open our minds to take one or two things away from today's sitting. Assalamu alaikum ala.
Wa alaikum assalam. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Innahu man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Ya ayyuhan nas اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. All praises, adorations and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe. We thank him for counting us among the living today. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to grant us successes and ease our affairs for us. Inshallah, as it has been mentioned, we are going to be reminding ourselves about Islamic trade, banking and finance, gems of ethical wealth for humanity. When we look at this particular topic, we are going to discover that the topic consists of 6 important concepts. We have 6 words in this particular topic. We have Islamic, we have trade, we have banking, we have finance. Then at the same time we have gems of ethical wealth, and we have humanity. So to understand this particular topic very well, there is need for us to break it one after the other. When we say Islamic, it's something that we are all familiar with. And the word Islamic refers to anything that conform to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it has been revealed in the book, in the Quran, and at the same time in the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we say Islamic trade, after we might have understand the meaning of Islamic, they will now say Islamic trade. So which simply means either we say Islamic trade or Islamic banking and finance. So we are referring to economic activities that are governed by the Sharia principles. That is the meaning. And this principle, when we say this Sharia principle, this principle includes adl, which is justice. And we also have as-sidq, which is honesty. Among the principles, we have al-amana, which is trustworthiness. Then the 4th principle is transparency. That trade, that transactions must be transparent. And at the same time, we must also have mutual consent. Mutual consent. These are part of what? The principles. And likewise also, provision of riba, interest. And lastly, among those principles is provision of what? Fraud and deception. So these are the principles govern as far as Sharia is concerned. When we say Islamic trade or Islamic banking or Islamic what? Finance. And the foundation of this can be found in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah An-Nisa, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batil illa an takuna tijaratan an taradi minkum. Allah said in the Quran that, oh, you believe, la ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batil, that don't consume one another's wealth unjustly. We should not cheat one another. We should not deceive one another in consuming our wealth. Illa an takuna tijaratan an taradi minkum, except you engage in trade transaction that has to do with what? Mutual consent. So this is the foundation as far as the Islamic ways is concerned from this particular topic. So which simply means that Islamic in that topic is signifying an economic system that is rooted in divine guidance rather than anything that has to do with human desire. So that is number 1. So when we understand that, then it's going to guide us toward whatever we are going to discuss in this sitting. Then let's look at trade in that topic. After we might have understood the words Islamic, let's look at trade. When we look at these trades, we said it's something that we are all familiar with. Trade is the exchange of goods and what? And services. between people for mutual benefits. That is the meaning of what? Trade. And as far as trade is concerned, trade is one of the oldest professions in human history. Trade is one of the older professions as far as human history is what is concerned. And this trade was practiced by many prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a successful merchant before he became a prophet. So that is to tell us that trade is something that is very important in our lives. Why is trade important? Trade is important because trade creates wealth. Trade creates wealth. And likewise also, trade creates jobs. If we are engaging in trading, then we are creating what? Job for people. And likewise also, trade is something that what? It facilitates any economic growth. When there's trading in any environment, the growth of that economy is going to what? Be improved. And at the same time, one of the importance of trade is that it connects buyers and what? And seller together. And likewise also, in trading, trade encourage act of what? Innovations. These are some of the importance of what? Of trading. Just for example, if a rice farmer in Kebbi State that grows rice is a trader, he grows rice, then we also have a wholesaler that purchases this particular rice. This farmer in Kebbi State grows. Then we also have a transporter that is going to transport this particular rice down from Kebbi to Port Harcourt. And not only that, when this rice comes to Port Harcourt, then there is going to be a retailer that is going to sell this particular rice to the what? To the consumer. And at the same time, when we look at this, everybody benefits. The farmer that grows the rice, the wholesaler, the retailer, the transporter, you see, everybody benefits. That is trading, as far as Islam is concerned. So, and this is one of the ways in which wealth are being created through active economic activities. So, all these terms, we need to key down. So by the time we are discussing some aspects at the long run, we're able to connect them together for a better understanding. So the Islamic perspective as far as trade is concerned is that Islam encourages trade, but that trade must create value. Trade that creates value, this is the trade that Islam encourages. But any money that is earned through efforts, through risk taking, and through service to the society, these are what we call as what? Trade. So this is the second key concept as far as this topic is concerned. We have guided us towards the Islamic of it. Then we have talked about what? Trade. So let's look about another key words in that particular topic, which is what? Banking. Banking is a common term to each and every one of us. So we can easily say that banking refers to institutions that facilitate financial transactions and also that solve financial traditional banking. They have their functions. Among the functions of our traditional banking is that it accepting deposits, then is providing financing, and at the same time is facilitating any act of what? Payments. Want to pay to somebody, is facilitate that. Then they safeguard our funds. That is traditional banking for us. However, when we look at the Islamic banking, this one differs significantly from the traditional banking. So when we look at the conventional banks, you see that the primary income of the conventional bank, the primary source of income of the conventional bank is interest on loans. That is the primary source of what? Conventional income money. Then, but when you look at the Islamic banking, the primary income source of the Islamic banking is what? Is trade-based transaction, in which we are just mentioning the meaning of what? Trade. The Islamic banking is what? The source of income is what? Trade-based transaction. And number two, leasing. Lease of what? Assets for people that need it to use. And likewise also, they are among their source of income is what? Is partnership. They have money, you have the contracts, then they come around to what? To rescue you in financing your what? Your projects. And likewise also, we have any investment activities. These are the major source of what? Islamic banking income. So this is telling us that as far as trade is concerned, it's something that is very, very essential in man's life. May Allah give us the better understanding. Then after that, we have done Islamic, we have explained trading, then we have done what? Banking. Then let's look at what? Finance. So what is finance? Finance, according to the people in finance, is that finance is the management of money. How money is being what? Managed. Investments. How investment is being what? Is being done. And at the same time, how assets and resources are being what? Managed. That means what? Finance. So we now have some questions that we need to answer. And how do we answer that question? So some of those questions that need to be answered, and it's only finance that can do justice to answering such question, is that among those questions is that how should money be raised? If you want to raise money, how should we raise that money? It boils towards finance. Then how should money be invested? It also boils towards finance. Then how should risks be managed? Is under what? Finance. Then how should wealth be distributed? Has to do with what? Financing. So we must understand this concept. When we now say Islamic finance, so we simply now means that seeking answer to those questions we just what? Mentioned. That is what? Islamic finance. Within the framework of what? Of the Sharia. So, and this Islamic finance, it promotes productive investments. Anything that has to do with investment, it promotes that. And at the same time, anything that has to do with ethical wealth creation, by creating wealth ethically, it promotes it. That is Islamic finance for us. Then anything that has to do with risk sharing, we join together in partnership, then we share the risk. When you make profits, we share profits. When risk come also, loss come, we also share it. That is Islamic what? Finance for you. And anything that has to do with social responsibilities is also what? Islamic what? Finance. So this is what finance is. Then let's look at gems of ethical wealth. It's also a phrase on its own. This particular phrase is one of the most powerful phrase in this particular topic. That is Islamic banking, Islamic trade, banking and what? And finance. Gems of ethical wealth for humanity. So what does the meaning of gems of ethical wealth is what? is referring, is talking about. When you say gem, gem is something that is valuable. Something that's what? Valuable. And at the same time, something that is rare. Among the meaning of gems is something that is rare, something that is precious, and at the same time, something that is highly sought for. Something is sought for very highly. These are the meaning of what? Gems. So when we now describe Islamic trade, banking and finance as gems of ethical wealth. So what we are saying in essence is that they contain some precious principle. And this principle is something that can transform any economic life. That is the meaning of what? Gems of ethical wealth. Because among those things that included in gems, among them is justice. Is justice. Which simply mean that nobody should be oppressed financially. That is one of the ingredients under gems. And number two, under gems is honesty. That transactions must be truthful. There must be truthfulness as far as transaction is concerned. And number three, there must be transparency. That nobody should hide anything that is important as far as any transaction is concerned. That is what is included under what? Under gems. And also number four is it must be what? There must be trustworthiness. The parties must honor agreements between them. These are part of what gems is concerned. I want to say gems of ethical wealth. There must be what? Trustworthiness in the wealth we are trying to what? Gather together. And likewise also, there must be fairness. The reward and the risk system should be balanced. It must balance among all the what? All the party. And likewise also, it also has to do with social responsibilities. Where should benefit the society in general. So these are what gems entails. So in essence is that if, for example, a business may generate billions of naira, a business may generate billions of naira, but those profits, those billions of naira that generated, the profit comes through fraud. If the profit comes through fraud or comes through exploitation of wealth and some other things, so those wealth is not ethical. It's not ethical. So, but Islam teaches us that wealth should be profitable and at the same time principled. Any wealth we want to generate in Islam must be profitable and must also be what? Principled. So this combination is the true gems that we are talking. So we now say that Islamic trade, banking and finance, gems of all wealth for what? For humanity. So if you can now understand the meaning of gems of ethical wealth, then what do we mean by humanity? Humanity is the final word in this particular topic. And this topic deliberately does not say for Muslim alone. The topic is not deliberately mentioned that it's for what? For Muslim alone. Rather, it says for what? Humanity. So this is because the benefit of Islamic economy principle, it extends beyond religion boundary. It extends beyond religion boundary. So everyone benefits. from honest trade. Everyone benefits from fair transactions. Everyone benefits from ethical investments. Then everyone benefits from reduced act of exploitation. And likewise also, everyone will benefit from what? Financial inclusion. That is what? Humanity for you. So when we look at many non-Muslim countries today and many institutions that are increasingly, they were interested in ethical investments, because we say what? Gems of ethical wealth for what? For humanity. Because of those values, it's embedded as far as gems is what? Is concerned. So, and likewise also, they were also interested in sustainable finance. And likewise also, any investment that is what? Impactful to the life of what? Humanity. So, this is telling us that many of these values we have mentioned have existed in what? In the Islamic finance for over 14 centuries. They have been existed for over what? 14 centuries. So, and when we look at the Nigeria context here, we see that whether someone is a Muslim or is not a Muslim, we benefited in what? In the Islamic what? Finance. Either you are a farmer, you need fair financing as a farmer, not the exploitative financing. Then either you are a businessman, you need businesses that your business that needs ethical investment that what? That is ethical. And likewise also, we have families as individual is concerned that we need financial what? Protection to attend to one thing or the other. And likewise also our government as well. They also need sustainable infrastructure that is going to what? Be financed. So this is telling us that Islamic finance offers solution that benefits everybody. So in essence, is that this particular topic, which is Islamic trade, banking and finance, gems of ethical wealth for humanity, simply means, in summary, that a divine guided economic system that is based on ethical trade, responsible banking, and just financial practices. Then this containing precious principles that promote prosperity, justice, and human well-being for all people, and also regardless of what faith, race, or nationality. That is the meaning of what? This particular topic. So this is just a breakdown of the West as far as this topic is concerned. Now, let's now go to the foundation. If we might have understood those words in this topic, which we have not started, then it's going to guide us in some of the things that we are going to be mentioning as time what goes on. So, the foundation, as far as this topic is concerned, is that what is the Islamic economic thinking in discussing this particular topic? You know, before we can discuss this particular topic we mentioned, we must first of all understand the philosophy that's underpin this particular topic. And that philosophy is that Islamic finance is not an invention of modern economists. Islamic finance is not an invention of modern economists. And it's not an invention of the modern bankers. Neither is an invention of what? The financial experts. So, Islamic finance is a divine guided economic framework. Is what? Is a revelation that's what guided economic what framework. And this framework is rooted in what? In the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the creator of mankind. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that owns us. He knows our needs. He knows our weaknesses. And he also knows our aspirations. And that is why he gave us this particular principle, Islamic what? Finance. It's not meant for only Muslim, but for humanity. When we look at some other economic system, some of the economic system that we are familiarized with, some of them focus primarily on maximizing profits. Nothing concerned them with whether you lose or not. There is what they want to make profits, either crook or in any means. They make what? They make profits. And likewise also, but when we look at the Islamic thinking, Islamic economic thinking seek balance. And this balance is seek balance to the fact that you make sure that our wealth and morality are displayed in the best of states. And likewise also, he makes sure that profits that are going to be made is justified. There is justice as far as those profits are concerned. And also make sure that individually our rights are being taken care of. And likewise also, the societal welfare is also being looked into. So it's not about the different principles people are used to. No, we are familiar with the capitalist system. We are familiar with socialists and some other system. But the Islamic economic system is far beyond those principles that are man-made. But this one is a what? It's a divine one. So, and the foundation of this framework is going to beautifully summarize in one of the powerful verses of the Quran, where Allah said that وَحَلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Allah said وَحَلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ, that Allah has permitted trade. Then وَحَرَّمَ riba, and he has forbidden interest, usury for you. So, you see at first glance, when you look at this particular topic, you see that this verse appears simple. But when we look at it deeply, it contains an entire economic philosophy. It contains an entire economic philosophy. So, this verse that we just mentioned distinguishes between two ways of increasing wealth. One of the ways is that wealth can be made through trade and productive activities. That is what he mentioned, that وَحَلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ وَحَرَّمَ riba, that he permitted for you to engage in trading. That is one of the ways we can make wealth. And the second way of creating wealth is being created through interest-based lending. These are the two major ways of increasing wealth. So, but Allah permits one, and he forbid the other one. The first one was permitted, while the other one was forbidden. Why? Because one creates values for society, which is trading, as you mentioned, the meaning of trading and the likes. Then, why the other leads to exploitation and concentration of of wealth. So Allah forbids that concentration of wealth and exploitation of of wealth. So, in these principles, we will now see that from this particular verse of the Quran, that Allah mentioned that he permitted for us trading and forbid useful for us. So we will see that we have some 5 basic principles in this particular verse of the Quran. So the first principle is that trade is productive and lawful, as Allah mentioned that wahalallahu al-bay'a, that trade is what permitted for you, because trade is being encouraged because of the fact that it creates what? Value, as you mentioned. Then when trade occurs, then wealth is what? Generated through efforts. Then wealth is being created through creativities. And likewise also, wealth is being created through entrepreneurship and service. These are one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages trading for us. And like the example that we mentioned about the farmer in Kebbi State down to Port Harcourt by bringing rice, we will see that everyone in that chain of distribution perform an activity, engage in value proposition. So this is to explain to us the importance as far as trade is concerned. Because in that example we brought to us, we see that job is created. Then we also see that income is also being generated through that transaction. Then food reaches the consumer, and economy grows. This is what trade is, and this is how wealth is being created through productive activities. So in essence, to tell us that no one earns without contributing value. That is why trade is halal, because this concept needs to be understood, most especially for people that did not know the meaning of profits and interest. Because we mix it together, we say profit, the interest money is the same thing. So because if all this concept is not being understood, then we are going to be mixing them together. So the second principle on that particular topic, on that particular verse of the Quran we mentioned, is that the second principle is that Allah said وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said interest-based exploitation is prohibited. Interest-based exploitation is prohibited. Allah prohibits this because riba, interest, generates profits for one party. Let's understand it very well. Riba, interest, generate profits for one party regardless of whether the other party succeed or fail. That is interest for you. It's just, for example, an entrepreneur that borrows 10 million at 30% annual interest. At the end of the year, either the business succeeds or not, he has to pay that 30 million. 30% of 10 million is what? That is 3 million plus. That is going to be what? 30 million. He's going to pay 30 million back for a business enterprise. Then, and now, let's look at what happens. The bank's return is guaranteed, either we like it or not. The bank return is what? Is guaranteed. Then entrepreneurs that borrow that bank, he bear most of the risk. He bear most of what? Most of the risks. And if the business collapse, nothing concerns the bank or whoever he lends the money from. He has to pay that money back. So, and at the same time, from this, if the entrepreneur cannot pay the money back, the entrepreneur may lose his business, then the workers he is using for his business, he may lose them, they may leave, and at the same time, that money is still going to what? Be repaid back. So that is the reason why Allah said interest is what? Is forbidden. Because you are not creating any value. You just sit down, then you exploit other party by concentration of what? Of wealth. When we flash back to the topics, to the keywords we explain. So this is going to connect us to understand it in a better way. So the Islamic view is that this is imbalance and is unjust as far as interest is concerned. So that is why that is second principle as far as interest is concerned. Then the third principle on that verse, the scholar mentioned that any words that we are going to make must be linked to what? To real economic activities. Interest does not link to any economic activities. It's money for money. But Islam is saying that there must be value for that money. There must be an activity, there must be a transactions that's going on. And this is what will make what? Our words to be what? To be halal. So money must what? Must link to what? The real economic activities. And one of the most important features of Islamic economics is that wealth must be connected to any tangible economic activities. We must key that very well. Because money himself should not become a commodity. Money himself should not what? Become a commodity that will generate what? Generate more money without productive efforts. So, and this is one of the things that riba, interest, has come to what? To play in the economy. So, then the fourth principle is that risk and reward should go together. Risk and reward should go together. So one of the fundamental principles as far as Islamic finance is concerned is that Al-Gummu bil-Gurum. That is one of the fundamental maxims of what? Islamic finance. The reward is justified only when accompanied by risk. Reward is what? Justified only when accompanied by what? By risk. So Islamic teaches us that if someone expects profits, then they should also be willing to what? To bear risk. If you're expecting profits, you should also be willing to what? To bear risk. So that is what? The principle. Then the fifth principle is that wealth should circulate, not concentrate. Wealth must what? Must circulate. So Islam does not oppose wealth creation, but it opposes concentration of what? Wealth in the hands of what? Of the few, which is happening in our economy today. So because of few among the individuals are the ones that the wealth are with. So, and it was due to this injustice, interest, and the likes, and that is the reason why this wealth is concentrated in their hands. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that Kayla yakuna dulatan bena agniyai minkum. Allah said in Surah Al-Ashr that so that wealth will not circulate among the rich that among you. It must go round, not within the what? The few individuals in the society. May Allah assist us. So when we look at our country, Nigeria, we see that when a small businesses cannot access fair financing, then we see that the reason behind that is that wealth is already concentrated among what? Among people. And before you know it, entrepreneurship will suffer. And likewise also, poverty will increase in the in the society. That is the effect. But Islamic finance promotes circulation of wealth through trading, through partnership, through zakats, through waqf, through takafu, and through shukuk. By this, wealth are circulated. And these are the mechanisms that are being used in economic participation. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the better understanding. So in essence, that the Islamic economic thinking in this perspective is telling us that there is a distinction between trade and riba. So there is a distinction between trade and riba. So they are not They are not the same. There's a legal ruling for them. So one is trade-based economy, while the other one is interest-based economy. So the verse of the Quran, the first one is trade-based, while the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited is is interest-based, because of some of the things that it connotes. Then after understanding the basic thinking of the Islamic economy as far as this topic is concerned, then let's look at the problems Islamic finance come to solve. Islamic finance did not emerge merely to provide the Muslims with alternative banking system. It not emerge to give the Muslim alternative banking system, but it offers solution. It offers solution to some of the most pressing economic problems confronting individual, confronting businesses, and confronting the nation. So we must understand that perspective, that Islamic finance did not emerge for the sake of the Muslim, but it comes to contribute and solve problems that individuals are facing, to solve problems that businesses are facing, and the nation is facing. And that is why we see that across the globe, we will see that many economies are struggling. Many businesses are struggling. Why? Why are they struggling? Because of excessive debts. There is a lot of excessive debt. When you look at the debt profile of different countries, nations, we see that they are so very alarming. And when we also look at, among those problems that nations are struggling with now is the rising of inequality. You see, some nations are above the other, despite the fact that some nation has a lot of resources that can make them independent, but they are still under some people because of this issue of interest-based system that is being practiced in the world today. And likewise also, we have a lot of people that have been excluded. Among the problems we are facing is that some people have been excluded as far as financing is concerned. So all this, we have a lot of problems that Islamic finance has come to solve. And one of the problems Islamic finance has come to solve is debt dependency. Debt dependency. Because one of the greatest challenges of modern economies is dependence of debt. And we see that today, individuals, businesses, and governments are relying on heavily on borrowing. Everybody is relying on what? Either individual businesses and likes heavily are what? Relying on what? On borrowing. And by doing that, business will continue to what? To suffer. Either we like it or not. So instead of wealth being generated primarily through production and what? Trade, we see that most of the economic activities are financed through debt. Before you hear federal government say they go for a bond, seek loan to what? To be financing different projects. And today we will see that the amount of trillions of naira that Nigeria has borrowed that are interest what? Based. And to look at some other countries as well. So it's not segregated to any, it's general phenomenon. But Islam has come to what? Has provided us a divine intervention, which is what? The Islamic finance that majorly focus on what? On solving this particular debt dependency. So then when we look at the second problem we are also facing is interest compounding pressure. Interest compounding pressure. We see that there's a lot of dangers that is becoming greater as far as the payment of debt is concerned. Now, when you delay your debts, then because of that delayance, it's going to what? Compound based on the number of days that it is. That is the conventional for you. So, which simply means that interest generates additional what? Additional interest. Interest generates additional what? Interest because of the what? Compounding pressure on it. Because ordinarily a business that borrowed 10 million in order to struggle for business and you give him 30% of interest rate on it to pay 30 million and he's struggling to pay that, to even make that money. He's unable to make the money. Then if he fails as far as meeting the deadline of payment, then before you know it, it will become 15 million. Before you know it, 30 million. There's one statement President Obasanjo mentioned in 1999 when he became the president. So when they asked him that what did he hate most as far as this on the issue of this financial system is concerned, he said what he disliked most is the issue of compounding interest. That Nigeria borrowed 5 billion in 1960 something, and today the money has become 60 something billion dollars. From 5 billion, the money has what? Compounded. So imagine an economy that has 65 billion naira. Don't you think that economy is very, use it for the humanities, for infrastructures and for more projects? The world, it will be transformed. But it can't be transformed because of this exploitation and injustice in the financial system as far as interest base is concerned. And that's why Islamic finance as what? Has come with what? With principles to what? To solve all these what? All these problem. Then when we look at the third problem Islamic finance has come to solve is wealth concentration. As we mentioned earlier, that because there's another challenge on its own, that wealth flows upward towards some already capitalistic human being. And this started among the Jews, or it's part of their what? Their lifestyle. So despite the fact that their books forbid interest, usury. They hide those areas. They cover those areas so that people will not know. But they now promote this act of what? Injustice. And this is what we find ourselves today by swimming in. So, and that's why we are being faced with series of what? Challenges, problems every now and then. So, because Islamic finance encourages broader participation as far as wealth creation through partnership, investments, and trade, as you mentioned earlier. Then the fourth problem that Islamic finance has come to what? To solve is SME exclusion. We have a lot of exclusion as far as the small and medium enterprises are concerned, because small and medium enterprises are the backbone of most of the economy. And we see that these SMEs, they are facing greater challenges. They have been debarred from having access to what? To financing. Because the traditional lender, they frequently require strong collateral. That go and bring somebody that is, by merely the name itself, small and medium enterprises. Where do you want small and medium enterprises to go and get collateral? So we have taken their backbone for getting financings in developing what? The economy. So, and at the same time, the traditional lender, they also require for credit history. Business, small and medium business that are just still coming, how will they want to get credit history? Where do they want to manufacture it for? That will serve as what? As the backbone of the financing. Then likewise also, we also have high interest payments as well. As we mentioned, high interest payment is also one of the problems as far as the traditional lenders brought on board. So we now have many talented entrepreneurs that possesses skills and idea, but they lack what? They lack assets. They lack any assets or funds to what? To progress their what? Their businesses. So, and that's why we see that in Nigeria, we see that we have a lot of graduates that can develop some innovative agricultural processing ideas, equipment. But this graduate has knowledge, this graduate has skills, he has market demand, but he lacks collateral. He lacks funds to be able to what? To upscale the knowledge he has what? Possess. Then if you go to the bank will refuse him financing because it doesn't have what? Collateral. So before you know it, that business what? Would die. The business will die. And the economy what? Will suffer. So, and at the same time, we see that in that society, there is loss of job. Because all his idea, everything, nothing to what? To back up with. Then likewise also, innovation has been also been lost as well. Then economic growth has problem. So Islamic finance offers alternative for such solution. So may Allah SWT assist us. So then the last problem Islamic finance has come to solve is inflation of credit bubbles. Inflation of what? Credit bubbles. So one of the causes of financial crisis is excessive speculation and debt creation in our society. When there is excessive speculation and where the debt creation is very what? High, it's one of the what crises we are facing in our society. We see that sometimes when there is enormous amount of money that is circulating without corresponding real assets, there's going to be problem. So it must go in part. one must not be above the other. So if one is above the other, then there are going to be credit bubble that will go to what? Inflation of credit bubble in society. We see that in the history, as far as the globe is concerned, in 2008, we have global financial crisis. So what was the link for that cause? The link was excessive lending. Lending was excessive, and there is speculations as far as financial instruments is what is concerned, and that was why we had a global financial crisis in 2008. So the world felt it, and then it was known. They know it, and that's why we see that after then there was increase in the participation in the usage of what? Islamic finance instruments. So between 2008 to now, there is high patronage as far as the divine Islamic system of financing is what is concerned. So, and we see that in that 2008, when we experienced such financial crisis, we see a lot of millions of jobs were lost. Then homes were also scattered, were not in the same. Investments was not also in the right shape. So every corner of the world felt that global financial crisis. So this is demonstrated to us that there are dangers as far as using the interest-based system in the economy. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see us through. So, and as far as Nigeria is concerned, we are also facing such issue on that particular aspect. That is why we need to base up and try as much as possible to patronize the Islamic finance system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enshrined in the Quran and the Sunnah for us. So, when identifying all these problems that we are facing and Islamic finance has come to solve, we see that when we look at the first one that we mentioned, debt dependency, we see that we have a solution. The solution is what? Is productive trading. When we trade productively, it's going to solve the debt dependency that we mentioned. And when we also look at the guaranteed interest payer, compounding interest payer, then what solves that problem is profit and sharing system. Islamic profit and what? Sharing system solve that particular compounding interest of a guarantee on the stuff. And why the wealth concentration, that's also, we have a solution for that, which is asset-based financing. Instead of what? Making wealth to be concentrated among some individuals. But when you engage in what? Asset-based financing, solve that particular problem. And likewise also, instead of transferring risk of a business, more especially in SME, by excluding them, then instead of transferring risk, we can share what? Risk. By joining hands together, promote the business. When profit comes, we share. When loss comes, we what? We share. So we share what? Risk together. Likewise also, instead of wealth concentration, then the solution is what? We make wealth to what? To circulate among what? Among individuals. So this is what Islamic finance has what? Has come to reflect for us. Then we have some core Islamic principles. Though we have mentioned some of them, but we will just highlight it, then we go to the main James himself. So the core principle of Islamic finance, we have provision of riba, which we have been mentioning, talking about, more especially as far as the warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concerned. So one of the core principles of Islamic finance is that it prohibits riba, and we see that this is the first and most well-known principle as far as Islamic finance is concerned. When you say Islamic finance, just say interest is what is prohibited. That is the first and most well-known principle as far as this is concerned. And when you say what is riba, riba simply means any guaranteed increase that is speculated on what? On a loan is what is called riba. So, and this is what? This is prohibited as far as Islam is concerned. So Islam does not prohibit profits. There are difference between profits. There are difference between what? Interest. So Islam did not prohibit profit for us. It did not does not prohibit trading and investment, but rather it prohibits any earning of money simply because money was what? Was lent out. That is what Islam what? Prohibited. Any money simply because what? Money is lent out. Islam warned against that. And there is a prophetic warning in this particular area where the Prophet Islam said that La'ana Rasulallahi akila riba wa mawkilahu wa katibahu wa shahidahi. That the Prophet Islam caused the one that what? That consume interest. The Prophet caused the one that pays interest. And the Prophet also caused the one that record interest, and the one that what? And that witness what? Interest. So this is to tell us that this aspect of interest is something that is very severe in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can see the number of people that were caused in that particular aspect of interest taking, giving, recording, and the likes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So this to tell us that as far as everyone is concerned, we need to what? Be well acquainted with that as a core principle in Islamic finance. And the second core principle in Islamic finance is what? Is asset-based transactions, as we've been mentioning. So money should finance real goods and what? And services. Not money for money. It must be what? Money for what? That is asset what? Base. So this is the second principle, because money should facilitate productive ventures. Money should facilitate goods and what? And services in the society. And that is why Islam discourages wealth generation that is detached from what? From tangible value creation. So we must understand that. And why is asset backing matters? When we say asset base, why is it matter? Asset based backing matter because an economy grows when factories produces goods. When factories produce goods, it makes economy to what? To grow. When farmer cultivates crops, it makes economy to grow. When builders construct houses, everywhere what? Will change. Everywhere will develop. And when traders exchange products for one another, then life what? Will be easy. What Nigeria cannot produce, another country can produce. We bring it to exchange. This is trading that Islam has what? Has encouraged us to do. So all these activities, they create job and generate what? Wealth. And these are pure financial transactions that different from what interest what base. So this is the second core principles of what Islamic finance. Then the third principle of Islamic finance is risk sharing. Risk sharing. So as far as risk sharing is concerned, is that Islamic teaches that rewards should correspond with what? With risk, as we mentioned. So a person should not enjoy profits while shifting all risks into another what? Party. So Islam discourages that. Don't just continue enjoying, and somebody is one that what? Bearing the risk for you. So rather, so the principle of Islam that we mentioned earlier, al-gunmu bil-gurum, is one of the core principles as far as Islamic finance is concerned, which simply means that profits is justified when accompanied with what? With risk. So this is the third core principle of what? Islamic finance, risk sharing. Why? The last one is halal investment. Halal investment. Halal investment. Islam is not only regulates how wealth is being acquired, but it regulates where wealth is what? Is invested. So it regulates where wealth is being invested. Because a transaction, as we mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, a transaction may be profitable, but that profit alone does not make it acceptable. A transaction may be profitable, but that profit alone may what? May not make it what? Acceptable. Except it follows the requirements of the Sharia. And that's why Islam requires investment to be ethically sound. Must be ethically sound before it can be what? Halal. So the principle is that Muslims should not profit from activities that harm individual and harm the society. Any activity that we are going to do that are going to harm people and society, we must not what? Engage in. We must not hand profits from such. So that is why Islamic financial institutions avoid financing businesses that involved anything that had to do with alcoholic production and distribution. Islam what? Avoid that. Then anything that has to do with gambling, Islam avoid such. Then anything that has to do with phonographics, anything that has to do with phonographs, Islam pornographic activities, Islam discourage that. Then also any fraudulent activities as well, Islamic finance discourage that. And likewise also anything that has to do with interest-based financial institution, and at the same time any prohibited sectors, Islam prohibits us what? To invest or gain something from such activities. So in essence is that when you say halal investment, is ensuring that our wealth contribute positively to what? To the society. So, and together they transform finance from a system that is focused mainly on profits into what? Into the society, and also make sure that the ethical prosperity, then the benefit is served to humanity is also there. And that is why Islamic trade, banking and finance are not mere financial alternative, but they are what? They are truly gems of ethical finance to what? To humanity. So about Allah, what is the gem framework? The gem framework of Islamic finance. Number one, among the gems framework of Islamic finance is Murabaha. Murabaha is one of the gems framework as far as Islamic finance is concerned, we see that Murabba is one of the most widely used and easily understood Islamic financing contracts. Because when we say Murabba, it simply means cost plus. Cost plus. Because the core principle of Murabba is not a loan. The core principle of Murabba is not what? It's not a loan. But it is what? It's a sales transaction. Sales transaction in the sense that the financier purchase, let's say a financier purchases an asset requested by what? By a customer. And then he sells it to what? To that customer at a disclosed profit margin. That is Murabba. That is the first gems. So, customer knows the original purchase price. The customer knows the profit behind on that particular asset, and also the repayment period is also well known, and the total amount of that is payable is also what? Well known. Nothing is hidden. That is Murabba for you. That is the first gems of what? Islamic finance framework. So this is what we call transparency when we refer back to our analysis of what? Of breaking down the words in the topic. So transparency is what make Murabba one of the gems of ethical finance. So everyone is of the know. If you buy a car, somebody comes to you, please, I want to buy a car of 15 million. Then now say, okay, this car, I'm buying this car 15 million. Then my profit is 3 million. You dey buy or you no dey buy? Deal or no deal? Deal. You are paying me 18 million. I buy you car of 15 million, then you are paying me 18 million. The person have really know the profit on that particular car. That is what? Murabba. It's not a loan. It should not be confused with what? With a loan. So this can be used for any other products. Buying of equipment, house, machine, and some other gadgets. So Murabba is one of the what? Gems as far as Islamic framework is concerned. So no hidden interest, no compounding debts, only transparent trade profits. That is what? The first gem as far as this topic is concerned. So, and let's look at the second gems. The second gem is what? Is Musharaka. Musharaka is the second gems as far as Islamic finance is concerned, which has to do with what? With partnership. Partnership is that both parties contribute capital in the business transaction. Both parties contribute what? Capital. And they are also going to share the profits according to the capital they are what? They contributed. That is what? Musharaka for you. And if there is loss, they also share in the what? In the loss as well. So no one is what? Is losing. It's useful for estates, it's used for factories, it's useful for agricultural produce and the likes. So we can use it for plenty other things that as a gems in what? In financing any of our what? Of our assets. So that is what? Musharaka. Then the third gems is Mudoroba. Mudaraba is one of the gems that has to do with Rabbul Mal and Mudarib. So one has capital, one has